What is the smartest beast in the field? Is it man? Is it an evil spirit? Was it the serpent? Or is it some other cattle or beast? If older means wiser and the beast was created before man, does that mean the beast is wiser than man? The beasts of the earth were made by God in Genesis 1:25, but the beast of the field was formed out of the ground by Lord God in Genesis 2:19, and they both seem to be distinguished from one another. Genesis 3:14 states that the serpent will be cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. However, hidden within this verse is the subtle implication that the cattle and every other beast of the field have already been cursed. Speaking of subtle, the serpent is described as more subtle than any beast of the field, which the Lord God made. In this context, what is the meaning of subtle? Most biblical concordances define the meaning of subtle in various ways, from wise and crafty to cunning, deceptive, and deceitful. Wise having a positive connotation, but deceptive being negative. In the Aramaic Targum, the subtlety of the serpent is translated wiser unto evil. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord God made. The serpent, not being capitalized, it almost makes you think that the serpent could be plural. Because remember, does the serpent have a name? And is the serpent in the context that is being used, is it describing a single serpent or the serpent as a species? And he said unto the woman, Yea, hath God said, Ye shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, God hath said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. So basically, the serpent has already decided that he is going to lie against God or his creator. So basically, the serpent's like, no, God is lying to you. Now the real question is, it's a little deeper. Now the real question is, who do you trust? Do you trust the serpent or do you trust your creator? And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die, for God doth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and the tree was to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof, and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together, and they made themselves aprons. And they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God amongst the trees of the garden. So I want to stop right here. And they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden. There seems to be somewhat of a human characteristic with the Lord God figure in Genesis 3. They heard the voice of Lord God walking in the garden. In most people's conception of God, does he walk? Is he in the form of human? Can we even perceive his form? And they heard the voice of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day, and Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God amongst the trees in the garden. And the Lord God called unto Adam and said unto him, Where art thou? And he said, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, Who told thee that thou wast naked? Hast thou eaten of the tree whereof I commanded thee that thou shouldest not eat? And the man said, The woman who thou gavest to be with me, She gave me of the tree and I did eat. The one thing I told you not to do, did you do that? The parallel verses in the Targum, and the woman beheld Samael, the angel of death, and was afraid. And yet she knew that the tree was good to eat, and that it was medicine for the enlightenment of the eyes, and desirable tree by means of which to understand. And she took of its fruit and did eat, and gave to her husband with her, and he did eat. And the eyes of both were enlightened, and they knew that they were naked, divested of the purple robe in which they had been created. So rather than being naked, as we see it in the King James Version, if you were to look at the Aramaic translation, they were divested of the purple robe in which they had been created. And the Lord God said to the woman, what is this that thou hast done? And the woman said, the serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. Did you do the one thing I told you not to do? The woman gave me the fruit and I did eat. And then he asked the woman, hey, what happened? It was the serpent. The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. And the Lord God said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle. Cursed above all cattle. Almost makes you think that the cattle have already been cursed. And above every beast in the field. Above every beast in the field. What above every beast of the field? Cursed above every beast of the field. And above every beast of the field. What? Cursed above every beast of the field. Does that mean that every beast of the field is cursed? Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. Between whose seed? Between thy seed and her seed. Who is he talking to? He's talking to the serpent. Between thy seed and her seed. Not between the serpent seed and Adam's seed. Now, how can it be that the serpent and Eve have two separate seeds? It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise its heel. When I go to the Targum in the parallel verse, it says, and it shall be that when the sons of woman keep the commandments of the law, they will be prepared to smite thee upon thy head. But when they forsake the commandments of the law, thou wilt be ready to wound them in their heel. Think about the word heel and how it is used in the future of Genesis. This is also foreshadowing, not just to that part of the future, but into the next chapter. Cain and Abel. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. In sorrow thou shalt bring forth children, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. And thy desire shall be to thy husband. Does this mean that her desire wasn't for her husband previously? By the simple wording, thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. Does that imply that she previously did not have desire for her husband, and previously her husband did not rule over her? Of course, this opens the door for who? The Legend of Lilith. Lilith is probably the most mysterious woman not mentioned in Genesis, but her legend is mysteriously associated with the narrative of Adam and Eve. In many ways, the nature of the beast is completely consistent amongst its kind. In comparison, individualism among the beast doesn't exist in the same way individualism exists among man. If man was given the privilege to name all of the beasts that came before him and rule over that beast, then what is man to a beast? Perhaps a god? Does the beast adhere to a natural law that man has been given the will to choose not to abide?